Hi guys, so I'm here with my reading wrap up for the month of April, and I don't know what happened. Oh, I just knocked something over, my bad. I don't know what happened in April, but I read like 19 books. A lot of them were, well, the majority of them were ebooks, but a lot of them were short sort of novels or novellas, or I just read them very quickly. So I will have to refer to my notes because I simply won't be able to remember them all without looking, so I apologise for that. I'll actually start off with one of the last books that I read in April, because it's the only physical book that I read, and that is What a Difference a Duke Makes by Lenora Bell. This is sort of like a Regency historical romance novel that I received for review, and I absolutely loved this book. Literally, I started it a couple of days after it arrived for review. I literally think it arrived the Friday, and then I started it like the last Friday in April, and I started it sort of over that weekend, and I absolutely loved it. I have seen a few reviews that people haven't liked it because it's taken very obvious elements of two stories, Mary Poppins and Jane Eyre, and it's taken elements from both of those and mixed it in to make a Regency historical romance novel. For example, just some of the elements, the female protagonist's name is Mary Perkins, very similar to Mary Poppins, and the male protagonist's name is Edgar instead of Edward, but his surname is Rochester. The female protagonist was raised in, she was an orphan. She was raised in a very strict religious school. She only had one friend there, Helena, who died of typhoid fever. She ends up becoming a governess and leaving that school. Edgar's two illegitimate children, one is called Michael. Mary Poppins, I think one of the children is called Michael, and the female is called Adele, and the child in Jane Eyre is called Adele, that Jane looks after. Mari has a parrot-headed umbrella. She makes the children take a spoonful of medicine. You know, very obvious elements taken. I personally really enjoyed that. I love Mary Poppins and I love Jane Eyre, and I quite enjoyed seeing those elements used. I quite enjoyed spotting them, but I do understand why some people wouldn't like that because it feels very obviously taken. I don't think people maybe would mind if there was an accreditation somewhere saying that that's what she's done. So, but like I say, I personally didn't mind, and I ended up really liking it and giving it like 5 out of 5. And I really look forward to reading the next book in the series, which seems very interesting. The Duke's sister in this has a is called India, and she's like a very different kind of female. She very much breaks the stereotype. She's like an adventurer, goes on archaeological digs, and she is the protagonist of the next book. So I look forward to seeing that, and in the meantime I will be going back to her other series that I started but I only read the first book of. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. So like I say, now I have to refer to my notes for all the Kindle novels that I read. This month I read 4 books by Kay Webster. I read Notice, Bad Girl, Mad Sea, and Pearson. Now, I think I started reading Kay Webster's books last month. I think I said that I read a couple, because I had her book Mr. Blakely for a review via NetGalley, so I picked up a few other books. So again, I read a couple, well, 4 of her books this month. So Notice was a bit of an odd one. Most of her books I'm finding a bit odd, so I don't kind of know why I'm still reading them. But anyway, Notice, I can't remember the characters' names, but basically this woman has had enough of working for this company. She's this guy's like assistant really, and he doesn't know that she exists. She makes his coffee every morning. She's really good at her job. She does more than just be his assistant. She's actually got some business acumen, but he doesn't see that, and she's sick of the other men in the company like being derogatory to her. So she's had enough and she hands in her notice. So she goes in, she slams her notice on his desk basically, and suddenly he's forced to see her. He used to be like a sniper, so he is very focused, and because she's not been in his focus, he's never noticed her before, but suddenly he becomes obsessed with her and he really wants to sort of be in a relationship with her, which I got, but he had weird stalking behaviour. Like, he slept under her bed with her in bed basically, so she doesn't know he's there. He's snuck in and sleeps under her bed. Creepy. It was a really fast-paced book. I don't know if I enjoyed it, to be honest. Like, something kept me reading, but I don't know what that was, so I'd probably give it, half marks. Bad Bad Girl is 2 very short stories that I barely remember. I know they're kind of taboo stories because most of her books have a theme where the girl is younger than the guy, and that's both the case. In one of them, I think it's a sheriff, and the other book is his daughter and his best friend. It's a bit weird, and I don't mind stories like that if they're well done, and to be honest, I don't feel like this particular set of stories was well done, so I probably would give them about the 1.5 mark. I read Mad Sea by Kay Webster, which I'd say is probably the one I enjoyed the most. I'd probably have given that about 3 out of 5. It was quite an interesting one because it's about 2 mer people, and they meet. He's actually the head of like a biker gang, like an MC, but neither one of them knows they're a mermaid when they meet, and they think they have this big secret. So that was quite an enjoyable one, I think, because it was a bit more fantastical and magical and a bit out there. I quite enjoyed that one, and I gave that one 3 out of 5. And then I read Pearson by Kay Webster, and I read a couple of other books in this series, but the idea of this book is it's one of a set of 4 books, all written by different authors, but the stories interconnect. It's called the Forefathers series, and they own a company called Forefathers, and that's why it's called that. Her book, I think, is the 3rd book in this set of 4, and I didn't really like it. It's about this girl, I think she's 18, and the guy, he's obviously older, I think he's in his like 40s, and he's had his eye on her for a while, which is creepy, like paedophilic creepy. And she's actually going out with one of his sons, but then like he catches them kind of together, basically makes them split up and takes her for himself, and I just didn't really like him as a character, this Eric Pearson. I didn't feel there was any like real relationship there. It's like I said before, like I can get behind these kinds of books if they're done well, but this one I just don't think was, and I didn't really enjoy it. So if I'm on that vein, I'll tell you about the other books in that series that I picked up. I read 3 out of the 4. I read the first one, which is called Blackstone. And it's about a guy called Trevor Blackstone. He's one of these forefathers, and he's got his eye on one. He owns a lot of property on the seafront, but the one that's next to actually the house that he lives in, the woman that did have it, this old woman, has just died, but she's left it to her granddaughter, and he wants to buy it. The granddaughter has agreed to sell it, but only at the end of summer because she wants to spend some time there, and he's convinced that he's going to get her to sell it. And they end up sort of having a relationship, but it's mainly just sex, to be honest. There doesn't seem to be any real development there, which is a shame because I think that there could have been. But yeah, not the best story, to be honest. Then I said about Pearson. What was the other one? See, I've read too many books to keep track of. It's a nightmare. Blackstone, Pearson. Wheeler was the last book in that series, so I've skipped one. I didn't read the 3rd book, which I can't even remember what that's called, but I read Wheeler, and that's the last book in the four Fathers series, and this one was the weirdest. Wheeler is the girl from Pearson that ends up, with the other man. That's her dad, and you find out that actually he's a proper psycho. He's a killer, and he's stalking Lucy from the first book, and he imagines that they're going to be together. But what he does is he likes to stalk his victim, inject them with some kind of paralyzing agent, rapes them basically as they're dying, and that's it. It was creepy as fuck. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. Creepy as fuck. Can't really say I enjoyed it, if I'm honest. It was weird. So yeah, that whole series for me really was weird. Just really, really weird. Okay, I read 2 novellas by Samantha Young, the author of the On Dublin Street series. I read On Heart's Boardwalk, which is a crossover really of 2 of her series, the On Dublin Street and the Heart's Boardwalk. Basically, Olivia and Nate, the couple from Before Jamaica Lane. I'm doing that because the books are behind me there. The couple from the story Before Jamaica Lane have been married for a good few years, and Olivia is feeling like they're drifting apart because of some tragedy that happened to one of Nate's friends. She feels that she's worried that he doesn't love her anymore, and that, because they're older, she's less attractive to him. So when he finds this out, he books them a little getaway to Heart's Boardwalk, which is where another one of her series is set, and it's just them sort of rediscovering themselves and getting closer together. It was really nice to catch up with these characters and just sort of see them somewhere else outside of Scotland. That was quite nice. So what did I give that in the end? I think I gave that 3.5 out of 5. Really enjoyed that one. And then after I read that, I read another one of Samantha Young's novellas. I read Villain, which is a novella set in her sort of Hero novel. Hero was a standalone novel for her, and it takes 2 characters from that book, Henry and Nadia, and it gives us their story. Nadia is a weatherwoman. She really enjoys her job, but she's not just a bimbo. She's a meteorologist. She knows the science behind it, but everyone sees her really as this pretty face, and her boss basically wants some information on Caraway, I just chucked my pen, which is the protagonist in Hero, because he has a past. I can't remember what his first name is. That's going to bug me. I have to find out. Caraway. Kane. There we go. Kane Caraway. He's heard some rumours, and he wants her to dig into it and find out if it's true. She's very reluctant to do that, but he's blackmailing her because he knows something about her past that she is not proud of. And basically, Henry is Kane's friend, and he comes from money. And he finds out that she's digging into his friend and threatens her, but then sort of they get past their initial sort of threats and they start kind of seeing each other. Nadia basically just wants it to sort of be friends with benefits, but Henry seems to want it to be more. For a novella, I really enjoyed it. I do kind of wish that they'd had their own full-length novel, because I do think there was enough of a story there to have made it so. But I always tend to find this with novellas. I'm always like, oh, they should have been a full-length novel. I really struggle with the novella format. But yeah, I do, in this instance, really wish they'd had their own novel, because I do think there was enough there for that. But I did really enjoy it, and I gave it 4 out of 5. Another novella that I read this month was Dearest Ivy by J.R. Ward. This is a Black Dagger Brotherhood novella. Now, I don't know whether to just go back and reread the whole Black Dagger Brotherhood, because I feel like I'm so out of the loop with it. It really changed tack around book 6, I think, when I was still... This me and this fucking pen. And it was moving more from like the paranormal romance into the urban fantasy, gang, crime. It really was starting to change, and I kept up with it for a while, but I really think I've dropped off. So I do think to get the best out of the series, because I've got most of the books. I think I've still bought them as they've come out. To get the most out of them, I really do think I need to go back. But anyway, Dearest Ivy is about a female vampire called Ivy. She works as a nurse, and it's about, oh my god, I can't remember his name. That's really going to bother me. But anyway, she meets this male vampire, and things sort of progress very quickly with them. They like go out on dates and stuff. And then she finds out that actually he's sick and he is going to die quite soon. But they go through all this together. And anyway, I didn't dislike it. I felt some of the pacing was a bit off. Sometimes it was going nicely, other times I was almost dropping off, but for the most part I really enjoyed it and would give it 3 out of 5. Then I read The Beauty of Us by Kristen Proby. This is a novel set in her Fusion series. I really enjoy Kristen Proby's books. They're contemporary romance novels and I always really enjoy them. This one was no exception. The Fusion novels follow a set of five friends, and they all run this restaurant together called Seduction, and each one of the girls does a different thing. You've got like the behind the bar, the accounting, the front of house, the chef, and I think marketing. They all do something different basically. And this one follows, oh my god, Riley, and I'm pretty sure she does all the advertising, the marketing, and she's pulled in this producer. I think he's also called Trevor, now that I'm thinking about it. Trevor, and the idea is that they're running a show all about their restaurant, and then the two of them meet and they have their romance. Really enjoyed it. I always enjoy her novels. They're always like light relief and always just a little bit fluffy, and I really enjoy them, and I gave it 4 out of 5. While I'm talking about Kristen Proby, I might as well say that I read Savour You by Kristen Proby this month, and that was the 5th and final book in the Fusion series, and I must say I think this one was my favourite out of the series, because it was Mia's book and I've been waiting for her because she's the feisty, fiery chef. And you find out that she has this whole, not secret past, but she had a past relationship that no one really knew about. And he comes back into her life because they are going to do like a celebrity chef challenge program together. And it brings her back into his life and you find out what happened between them and what went wrong. I'm not normally one for second chance romances, but this one was done so well that I absolutely loved it, and it was my favourite book in this series. And how it ends, you get to see them a few years down the line, not years and years, but a few years later, and you see where they all are with their lives in the restaurant. And it was really nice. It does sort of give you a hint about them opening the restaurant in other places, so I'm wondering if they'll follow other characters maybe in those places. I'm not sure, but it's a possibility. Another book that I read this month was Crazy Sexy Love by K.L. Grayson. This is one that I picked up because Kristen Proby posted it on her Instagram. So I thought if she's posted it, it must be sort of along her sort of lines. So I downloaded it. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it either. It's about, do you call them rodeo riders, like bull riders? And he gets injured, so he gets sent home. It's like all set in and around Texas. And his ex-girlfriend is there, and they split up badly. He thinks that she cheated on him, so they have a history. It's a second chance romance. As you guys know, I've just said, they're not normally my thing. This one, I didn't hate it, didn't love it. It was just kind of an okay read for me. So, yeah. The next 2 books I read The Bad Luck Bride by Jana McGregor, and I read The Bride Who Got Lucky by Jana McGregor. These are the 2 first books in her Caversham Heiresses series. It's a Regency historical romance. As you guys know, that's kind of my thing. I love them. And I really enjoyed these 2. The first one, The Bad Luck Bride, had a few pacing issues, like sometimes it just dragged a little bit, and some of the dramas that we had to overcome were, I was like, I don't know if I completely love this, but overall I enjoyed the characters, and I just think it was one of those books where, because it's the first book, you know, not hiccupy, but, you know, not as good as it could be. The second book I definitely enjoyed. I think that little bit more. I think the pacing was better. So yeah, two really good Regency historical novels, and I'm really glad to have found a new author in that genre. So I've talked about that one. This is getting hard to keep track of here, guys. I read Her CEOs by Mila Crawford. This was one that I was sort of in the publicity tour for on the blog, and it was weird. It was basically all sex, basically, is what this was. It's about this one woman who works in this company, but 3 of the CEOs all want her, and then they end up having like this weird relationship with all of them. Didn't really enjoy it. I read Wild in Love by Bella Andre and Jennifer Scully. This is the 5th book in the Maverick Billionaire series. I love this series. It's Bella Andre. As you guys know, she's one of my favourite contemporary romance authors, and I'd been waiting for the 5th book, and I really enjoyed it. A really nice romance novel. I would recommend reading the series in order. You don't really have to. Each book is a standalone, but I just think you do get that a little bit more enjoyment out of them when you read them in order. But I would definitely recommend. And then I think the last book that I read was A Multitude of Sins by H.E. Regis. This is a book that just randomly popped up on my Goodreads recommendations. So I downloaded it, and it's basically about a priest and a sister that fall in love. And it was, I think this book had potential, if I'm honest. I think the potential was there, but the execution of it wasn't that great. So I don't think I would recommend it, guys. I'd probably give it about 1 out of 5. 1.5. Like I said, like, the story was kind of there. I just don't think the writing was that great. So yeah, that's finally everything that I read this month, guys. Thank you so much for watching if you stuck with it, and happy reading.